got my butt kicked like 6 hours after mine. Could land the gun and let Polly walk on you. She probably would go for it. Oh. Oh, so you got a tattoo?
Good morning, church. It is great to see you. I'm Sarah.
I'm Susan.
And we are bringing you your morning announcements. And we have quite a bit to get to because we have a lot of things coming up through the spring. And the first thing we'd love for you to know, as you guys are connecting with us, as we see newcomers in the sanctuary, and if you're tuning in online as well. First, we love to just always say, if you are tuning in online, please connect with us in some way. So if you're watching through Facebook Live, say good morning so that we can connect with you and actually have a conversation and welcome you to the service. But for anyone who is new, who is either tuning in online or if you are sitting with us in the sanctuary today, we have an online connection card that is very, very easy for you to fill out. This is going to be a text connect. So all you need to do is grab your phone and text 610-600-8052, and the keyword is connect. So if you just text connect to that number, again, it should be on your screen, 610-600-8052. We would love to connect with you. Tell us, you'll have some questions like, how did you find out about us? And what's bringing you here, that kind of stuff. So we would love that. We're so excited to roll this out for you and to get to know you better.
Yes. So graduates, we really want to celebrate you guys. So parents, if you have a graduate who is graduating from high school, college, getting their master's degree, send us a picture at office@readingcitychurch.com. We want to celebrate you guys. Send us a picture, maybe a fun fact, their major, anything fun about them, anything you want to say to celebrate them. But we absolutely want to celebrate this huge accomplishment in your life.
Yeah, so that will be happening like early June. We're going to actually roll that out and we'll show the slideshow of all of our graduates. That's going to be really fun.
That'll be so fun, yes. So don't forget to send them.
Coming up really soon, it is going to be our Memorial Day outdoor picnic service. So the awesome thing about this is that we're providing lunch for everybody. So you guys just need to bring a lawn chair, maybe some lawn games, or whatever blanket, whatever might fit, on the back lawn or the side. And this is just a connecting day for us to have a really cool service outside, but also be in the fresh air. And it's going to feel a lot different. So we're really looking forward to this.
It'll be so great.
Yeah, and if you're around for Memorial Day weekend, we would love for you to join us.
Absolutely. We just want to take this time to thank you guys so much for your faithful giving. Last week's offerings were $9,743. Our weekly budget is $8,175. Our year-to-date income is $180,127, and our year-to-date budget is $155,325. Again, just as a reminder, you can give through our app, online, mail, or in person.
We are also very excited to announce that we have a newcomer lunch coming up on June the 6th. So this is going to happen Sunday right after the service. This is a very casual event. We're just going to order some sandwiches, individual lunches. So we will need you to sign up for this, please. You will have a sign up on the website. You can also sign up for this by sending us an email to office@readingcitychurch.com and just saying, hey, I'm new, I've been new, even in the past 6 months. This is for anyone who has been new recently, because this is the first time this year that we are actually having one. So we're so excited about that. We're really excited to get to know you. Again, this is just a very casual lunch. It's going to take place in the welcome room right after the service, and that's June 6th.
So, Global 6K, it's already this Saturday. We're so excited. So, if you guys haven't signed up yet, please make sure you do. We are still looking for volunteers.
Yeah, we need volunteers.
Absolutely. Or you can donate, or you can sign up and run/walk, because I'll most likely be walking.
We'll be walking. It's fine.
But it's such a good time, and it's for such an amazing cause. So please make sure some way you contribute to this, because you won't regret it. It's so amazing, and it's always a great time.
Yeah, and even if you you don't want to walk or run, we need people who are willing to cheer people on. We could use people to help us set up and also tear down, help with registration at the tent, that kind of stuff. Even taking pictures and video, which is really awesome. So if you have been thinking about it and you just haven't done it yet, go right to the website. There is a picture of the Global 6K, right? And you can pick whatever you're doing. Donating, registering, or volunteering, and then it says register, so you'll click on the register link. And again, if you can't make it, but you want to help us meet our goal of $15,000 for providing clean water in countries that do not have it, guys, this is so amazing. This is mission work all over the world, and we don't want you to miss this, and we want to do it together as a community. So please be sure to either volunteer, to help us, to donate, or to walk or run. We cannot wait to see you on Saturday. Last but not least, we all know that all of you have heard big news this week from the CDC with regards to their recommendations for masking. Now, we have always, out of a great amount of respect and caution, followed whatever the guidelines of the CDC have been. While that may change going into the summer, and we are awaiting some of those, we will let you know if anything does change. At this point, their recommendation is that all of those who have been fully vaccinated can not wear a mask in the spaces. And so we are going to let you know that it is also going to be our policy now that if you are fully vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask in the sanctuary. We are asking that if you are not, that you would be respectful of everyone else and wear a mask while you are singing or walking around. But otherwise, in your seats, we're totally fine if you take them off as well. Well, thanks so much for sticking with us. That is it for your morning announcements. It was so nice to be with you this morning. We're going to turn our hearts now to worship. Church, have a beautiful day.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to RCC. If you would stand with us, we're going to pray and get started here and sing together and worship together. God, thank you for this day. Thanks for this beautiful spring morning. I pray that you would help us to focus on you and what you have for us here this morning. In Jesus' name, amen.
Don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. Take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. Take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from.
Praise go up as the walls come down. All creation Everything with breath repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus.
Let's sing that one more time. Swing wide.
Swing wide, all you heavens, let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus.
Sing Jesus.
Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in his blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, his kingdom come.
Well, don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. Fix your eyes on this one truth. Fix your eyes on this one truth. We want to know the truth about the love we honor. Was given, cannot be gained from anything we are. And nothing to owe or own except for all you offer. And called by the name that gave us all you say we are. We want to know the truth about the love we honor. Was given, cannot be gained from anything we are. Nothing to owe or own except for all you offer. We're called by the name that gave us all you say we are. We call on the name that's high above and where we are. I sing praises to your name. Praises to your name. The name that's so much higher than all names. All honor to your name. Honor to your name. The name that's so much greater than all names. Be lifted up. Be lifted higher. Be lifted up. Be lifted higher. I sing praises. Sing praises to your name.
lifted up, be lifted higher, be lifted up, be lifted higher. Your name has spoken the ancient ways, changing hearts while you stay the same. God who moves in the new remains, rooted in love. The spring will come, make us one. Your name has spoken the ancient ways, changing hearts while you stay the same. A God who moves in the new remains, rooted in love. The spring will come, make us one. Your name has spoken the ancient ways, changing hearts while you stay the same. God who moves in the new remains, rooted in love. The spring will come, make us one.
And all that I am and all that I have is beautifully made by your hands. And there are no questions, there is no doubt that you look at me and feel proud. You're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed. You stand in wonder of what you made. I am loved by you. Oh, I am loved by you. I am loved by you. Your love
You may be seated.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks. That's so much better. I like to know that you actually like to be here and see one another and worship. So thanks for that. I just want to mention a few things. Today is Out Sunday, as most of you probably know, unless you're visiting with us or you're new to RCC and you're trying to figure out what the heck this church does on Sunday mornings. So are we. We're developing some new rhythms to really try to be very purposeful about not just preaching, but also equipping us to really know how to pursue Christ and really know how to love and serve others outside our walls. And so we have this whole rhythm that we do. Every first Sunday of the month feels pretty much like a regular service in that I preach and there's worship and all of that. The rest of the weeks kind of feel like that as well, but there is a difference. It starts with worship like it did today, but then we break off into workshops as opposed to just a regular sermon. And so the workshops that are happening today, there is one in here called Developing Healthy Rhythms that Sarah and I will be talking about in just a few minutes for those who are going to be here. Or if you happen to be watching at home, that is what you will see, is what's happening in this room here. There are two others as well. One is Sharing Your Faith. It's part 2 of that with Wade in the room next door and Jeff. And then downstairs, we are hearing from the nonprofit that we heard from last month. We're continuing that for this season, Clare House in Reading. There are some ladies that are with us today. We're so thankful that you're able to be here from Clare House, and they're going to be sharing some of their story. And that's downstairs, and you'll hear more about that. There's also another service opportunity happening today after the service. This is optional for those of you who are able to join. We're going to be at Clare House. Last month we prepared the ground for some gardening, and today there is some painting to be done outside. And so if you're able to help with that, you can go grab lunch somewhere here on the avenue, come back, or if you have lunch already, and somewhere around 12:30, head over to Clare House and help out with that. You heard Sarah mention this in the No video, but yeah, our mask policies have changed because of the CDC recommendations. So again, if you missed it, if you are fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask at all. It's your choice if you want to wear a mask. If you are not fully vaccinated, then we ask that you still wear a mask when you're walking around and when you're singing. Other than that, you do not have to wear a mask while you're seated. So hopefully that helps a little bit as we start to move toward freedom, which we're getting there. We're getting closer. So I think that's everything. We're going to take just a few minutes for the transition. So again, hopefully you registered for these classes ahead of time. This is all online. It's also on our app. But if you are newer and you did not register, feel free to go with what you'd like. We'll give a few minutes for the transition. We'll end up back here a few minutes before 11:30 for a song of worship as well. All right? God bless you. So glad you're with us today. but really, we have some. I know I said this last week, but we really have some great teachers that are part of our church family. But really glad that you guys are here, and those of you who are joining us online, really glad you're here as well. Last month, we took some time to introduce the whole concept of developing healthy rhythms. Actually, let's go back to the tagline, which is finding a helpful balance with boundaries, with our priorities, and with our walk with Christ. And we talked about how COVID, before COVID, we talked about our lives before COVID, we talked about our lives during COVID, and how a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people rediscovered, kind of healthy rhythms or boundaries and some stuff that was good. But then the transition from that back to a post-COVID life can be challenging. And when we're talking about, on an Out Sunday, about serving our world, how do you know what to say yes to? How do you know what to say no to? How do you know how to have healthy rhythms that really develop that? And so we talked about the last time we were together. If you missed that, just go back to last month, the third Sunday of the month. We also got into a little bit of biblical stuff here to talk about it. And as I recommended then, this is like just a suggestion to do a Bible study on this if you'd like to. Of all the different verses that are there, recognizing one size does not fit all, giving some biblical examples to the individuality of every person that is uniquely made in the image of God. So, when it comes to healthy life rhythms, there is no one prescription that you could apply to everybody. It's like, and that's why Sarah and I are just going to be really having a very just honest conversation about what works for us, what doesn't work for us, what we get right, what we get wrong. And it's different because we are all made different. And so it's a matter of trying to find what works well, for you. And Christ-centered boundaries are life-giving. I should back up and say the reason I mentioned this is there's a difference between self-serving boundaries and Christ-centered boundaries. Self-serving boundaries we make sometimes just out of selfishness. We make it sound good by talking about boundaries, but really we just want to protect ourselves, and we end up hardening our hearts, and we end up really not loving people very well. That's not Christ-centered boundaries. That's more self-centered boundaries. So how do you have Christ-centered boundaries? That was really the point. And so Christ-centered boundaries are life-giving. They do guard the life within us, but they direct the flow of life of God's presence in our lives by sending that life to which is meant to be fruitful. And then also, lastly, they're kept by inner integrity. Practicing honesty with ourselves and others is just so crucial. And maintaining that honesty as we go to say what actually is and what is not working in that regard. So that was just a quick review of last time we were together. Today, as I said, what we're hoping for is that Sarah and I would just have a very honest conversation about stuff, about our own lives, and pull you guys into that, invite you guys into that conversation. So if there's things that, something that we're saying that's like, connecting with you and it's making you think about something in your own life, or you would like to have, or you have a question, or you have a comment, or something that works and doesn't work, like let's please have a conversation about it. Sorry, those who are watching online, obviously we wish you were here in person. It's a little bit more difficult to join that conversation, but it's helpful for us to be able to just talk about that stuff together. The papers that Sarah gave out, there are some questions. Actually, you received an email this week if you signed up for this class that had some questions. We were hoping that you would be able to do those before you came out. But they'll be on the screen as well, and I'll kind of put those up every few minutes while we talk. So, good? Yeah? I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Good morning, everybody. How is everybody this morning? Good. We're so glad you're here. It's so good to see you. This is a really good conversation that we had last month, and hopefully you guys, if you were here, remember that. We talked about sort of the beginning, right, of how you end up discovering that you really need to have better rhythms in your life. And so Vince had asked me some questions about that last week, and so I'm going to start this morning just by asking you question too. And, last time you got to hear from a woman's perspective, which is what we're really trying to do, is give you sort of both perspectives. And so with regards to yourself, as a guy, guys probably don't talk a whole lot about having rhythms in their life. It's probably something you may not even know necessarily that you need, or how to identify that. I don't know if that would be accurate, but it's just not something I hear guys talk about a lot. I can just give you my mic.
Test. Is this on? It is? Okay, thanks.
So, what have you specifically yourself learned about what it means to have a rhythm in your life? And how does the practicality sort of blend into the spirituality?
Right. So Sarah and I knew a few of the questions that we were going to ask each other, but we really, every time we tried to prepare, we were like, this isn't working. So it's just going to be very organic conversation. We didn't really prepare for it, but we gave each other permission to kind of go after the heart of it. I would say you're right. As a guy, I never thought about healthy rhythms. That's not anything. I never had that conversation with anybody until probably COVID hit and started thinking that through a little bit more. But when I look back on my life, I can definitely see that I did develop, or I was intentional about trying to develop what those were. And some of it was because a lot of it, I think, comes from pain. We don't typically make really big changes unless there's been a painful event, that's happened in our lives, or something from the outside comes in and influences, like COVID, obviously. But again, the whole thing is like, even if you've developed healthy habits from there, how do you continue those on in a post-COVID world? So when I was I shared some of this before, so I won't bore everybody with the details, but as a young adult, at the age of, I think, 18 or 19, I was already serving in part-time ministry. So my brother was a church planter, and so I was leading his children's church ministry, and then I was leading his youth ministry, and then I started leading a young adult ministry. And all of that was part-time. Actually, it wasn't even part-time. I didn't get paid for it. And they weren't small, even though it was a church plant. They were like, 25, 30 children and elementary age. And the youth ministry was growing pretty quickly. And the young adult ministry was really growing, actually, pretty quickly, too. So I was doing that, and I had a cleaning business that I did, and I tried to keep that going, and I had some employees, and that's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to do business, and so I took business courses and had my own business at like 18 and 19, and all that was happening, and the pace of it all was kind of extreme, and I was very out of balance. Chris and I were dating at the time, and Chris had a lot of stuff in her life that was kind of out of control. Her mother had a brain aneurysm. She was on her own at the age of 17. We were trying to find her a place to live, and everything was happening at the same time. And there was, I think, kind of like this legalistic approach to the Christian life that made me feel that I had to have everything just right. Like I couldn't serve God unless I was like perfect in so many areas. And of course I wasn't. And so like the inner turmoil of all of that and trying to do everything I was trying to do just left me kind of in shambles. So I was probably 19, maybe 20, when I developed all kinds of hives on my body, and I began to get really sick physically, and I felt like I couldn't do this. Like I felt hypocritical. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep all the balls in the air, and God really broke me of that. And I've preached about all this before, so I'm sorry if I'm being redundant, but it was a Billy Joel song of all things, "Just the Way You Are," that came on the radio. And I was really complaining to God, and I was like, God, I am so tired and stressed out in doing your work. And I felt like God immediately said back to me, why are you tired and stressed out in doing my work? And it was like, oh, right. And then I turned on the radio and Billy Joel was singing, don't go changing to try to please me. And I want you just the way you are. And I remember just breaking, and I had to pull over. I was on 295 headed north going to a job, and I had to pull over on the side of the road and just break down and weep because I felt loved. And love kind of freed me from all the entrapments. So that kind of was like the springboard of saying, okay, I got to do something different with my life. Like I can't approach life the way I approached it before. And that kind of combined with the fact that I came to faith in a Pentecostal church, which was very charismatic, Assemblies of God. I'm still licensed through the Assemblies of God, actually. But there was this sense of like, if God was going to move, you're gonna have goosebumps. If God's going to move, you're going to have a very emotional experience. Well, you know what I mean? Like something big has to happen. That's how you know God's in the room. It has to be big for God to be in the room. And that's like it's not sustainable spiritually. And I remember feeling like when I came across any kind of real problems in life, I had to try to manifest some kind of big thing to happen in order for me to feel like God was actually present. And that also wasn't very healthy. And I started to, all of that gave me a kind of a disenfranchisement with the church in general. And I was already starting to serve in the church. But the systems that I was seeing and what I was, and the way that I felt like it was making people dependent upon an idea or a service as opposed to helping people pursue Christ on their own and in the context of community, started to make me really hunger and thirst for something deeper. And that led me to all the mystics and the Christian writings. And by reading them and their love for Christ and their passion for Christ, I started to be purposeful about how I spent time with God. Not just like, have you had your QT today? Have you had your quiet time today? You had your you had your time in the Word, brother, but actually pursuing a relationship, like not trying to check anything off, boxes, because that doesn't feel natural. Like that doesn't feel real relationally. Like if I have my things to do list every day, and on my things to do list I say, greet Chris, hug Chris, make sure I do. What the heck is that? Like I'm checking her off a list. That's not real. So trying to pursue Christ in a way that was relational, and that weirdly, I know sounds weird to a lot of people, but I would say was romantic, is what pulled me in. And I started to practice pretty much, I read about the spiritual disciplines and practices, and I started practicing. I did them all, and really only a few stuck. There's only a few that actually felt like it was a natural expression of who I was. And so I started zeroing in on just a few. I think I still struggled with guilt for a lot of my life, and feeling like I needed to do a certain amount of stuff in order to feel close to God or accepted by God. But as I got older, I gave that up more and more, and I'm not so much aware of my successes or failures anymore. It's like, because that's a waste of time. But it's much more awareness of Christ and the fact that I just want to be with Him. If I say like this, again, I'll just use Chris as an example. She smiled at me from up there. It's okay. If I always felt guilty all the time as a husband, if I felt like I never ever measured up, and I felt guilty and condemned all the time, and I was just like, I'm sorry, I just didn't do this right, or I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, that's not going to get me anywhere in my relationship with her. But if I, just realizing I'm human, I make mistakes, and that's okay. And you give each other grace, and you give ourselves grace for that. But I want to get back to the place in which we're connected, then it's going to be a lot healthier. And I think that's how it has to be with Christ. It can't be this thing in which we're always beating ourselves up, never feeling like we measure up, but just knowing that he is constantly loving us and wanting us to spend time with him. And it's not like we have to work hard to get there. We just have to avail ourselves of that and being purposeful about it. So for me, I don't have my beads with me, but for me, that just looks like, right now, through the years, I've settled in on something that really gives life to me, which is, waking up in the morning, like everybody, and I don't know why I said that. Of course, I wake up in the morning, and go out on the deck, our deck in the backyard, and with my prayer beads, and I have they're just called Anglican prayer beads. It's kind of like the idea of the rosary, but it's a lot smaller. It's not a crucifix, and you have certain prayers that you use when you go around on each bead. It just helps because I like to hold something in my hand. I like to hold the cross when I'm thinking about the cross, and then have the different prayer beads. And so, I have a whole way of praying that makes sense for me, that really works for me. And I can share that with anybody who might be curious, but I won't get into that right now. But that really, really is life-giving for me. And then, and then there's other little things that I'll do throughout the day of turning my attention to the Lord, kind of a continual just directing thoughts and things toward him. And then at the end of the day, doing the prayer of examen or Lectio Divina, which we've talked about many times here. And I use an app for that a lot of times. It's not like I try to create that from scratch. I just use an app that's really good. And so doing that almost every day. Days I don't do it, that's okay. I don't beat myself up over it. But trying to do that most days. And then the other bigger spiritual rhythms are just like trying to get away to pray for a few hours once a month is important for me. Just like you would take a little bit to take a nice long walk, that kind of idea, but choose to be purposeful about spending it with him instead. And then my position as a pastor allows me to get away to pray for a few days, and so I do that too, usually twice a year. I get away to pray for a few days, and those rhythms kind of help feed all the other moments, in between.
Yeah. Can I just ask you guys to be really honest? The questions that we sent earlier this week were really meant to sort of prepare you for this conversation today. And hopefully you either looked at them or are looking at them. And they were much more in depth this week than we went even last week. And I just really, want to know, and we can just do this by a show of hands if that's easier, but, how many of you guys really struggle with guilt and feeling that, if you just didn't get it all right today? Everybody. Yeah. How many of you feel like you don't even know how to get from where you are to the next place you want to go? So I want to ask you some more personal, because you covered a lot of spiritual things. I think if you guys are anything like me, there's no way for me to even enter a place in which I feel like God is part of my day unless I actually create practical spaces for that. And so we have to have a blend, right? Just as much of really practical things we do that don't sound very spiritual, but actually they are, because they're the only place in which we can allow the Spirit to sort of enter our space and then stay with us throughout the day. So I want to make sure that when we're talking about it, we're talking about all the little things in between. So I would just want you to give at least a couple examples, maybe from your morning routine. What does that look like for you? Because if you don't do the practical, does the spiritual just enter it?
Yeah, no, that's so good. That's a really good question. Yeah, no, I don't think it would. I think then it would feel like legalism again, you know. So, yeah, so most mornings, again, most mornings, I'm not saying this is every day, but I would say most mornings, when I wake up, I go downstairs and the first thing I do, Lisa, I don't even know why I'm going to just tell you all this.
It's not weird, just saying.
All right, you asked. So I open up all the, I just open up all the curtains, and as I'm doing that, I say, "Good morning, Jesus." That's just what I do. So I'm opening up the curtains and I'm looking out at creation. I'm just saying, "Good morning, Jesus," and I'm just, just setting a tone. And then I make coffee, and the way I make coffee actually does kind of relate to all of it, because we had a regular coffee maker for years, like everybody else does, probably, if you drink coffee. If you don't, I'm sorry. I finally got rid of our regular coffee maker and just decided to invest in a really good bean grinder and a pour over, a really nice pour over. So every morning, after I open up the curtains and I boil the water and grind the beans, put it in the thing. If you know about pour overs, you pour the hot water in, wait for 30 seconds, and then you pour it slowly for the next 3 to 5 minutes. And I really thought when I got this, there is no way I'm going to do this every day. I just know what mornings can be like, and I'm realistically not going to take that much time. It's so much easier just to have it set and you press the button on the coffee machine. But I actually really enjoy it, as odd as it sounds. There's something about not rushing first thing in the morning and actually taking the time to invest a little bit in the cup of coffee that I'm going to drink. Invest a little bit of time in that starts to set my spirit, kind of in the right posture. So when I'm out on the deck, I'm holding a warm cup of coffee that I just took time, to brew through the coffee pour over, and then after that, when I'm done the prayer time, sometimes one of the morning news shows will be on, and Chris and I will sit down and watch a little bit of that, talk about the news. Usually it goes the news is on, and we hear 20 seconds of it, and that's a springboard for a conversation about all of our opinions about what's happening in the world. And then we actually don't hear the news at all. We just talk for 25 minutes about what we think is happening, and then we stop watching, and then I stop watching that, and I exercise for about a half hour or so, and that actually is an important part of my rhythms. That keeps me more alert. It awakens my senses more, and then I shower with stuff that is made for sore muscles because of my age. I have to do that every single day. So trying to find shower gel that smells good but also works your muscles is really important. And so and then just on the way in typically to the office here, I'll do what I want to do. I think that's the thing about my walk with God. I don't look at things as this dualistic idea of the world. I don't look at things as sacred and secular. It's all sacred, because God's in and over it all. So with music choices, you've heard me say before, I'm not big on the Christian subculture stuff. I don't really listen to Christian music. I do listen to worship for sure a lot, but the rest of it I don't. So if I feel like listening to alternative, R&B or alternative rock, I'm gonna blast it in my car and enjoy it. But other mornings I want to listen to a devotional thought, and so I do that. And other times, if my brain is super active, I want to listen to still music to kind of just breathe deeply, and I'll do that. There's no rhyme or reason to any of that stuff. It just depends on where I'm at in the moment. So I don't know. Is that personal enough, or do I need to get more
good.
personal? All right.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I just was reading this morning, before we started, and there was an excerpt from Dutch Sheets' book, The Pleasure of His Company. And I was thinking about how we are going to enter a space where we're trying to talk about this in a really practical way. Like, we don't want to over-spiritualize how you work out every day, because half the time that's not what we feel, right? We're stressed out. Your rhythms probably have changed since having young kids, since even like being single or just being with Chris, to where you are now. And so have mine drastically. And for sure, that applies to every mom in this room, 100%, who feels probably a lot of the time like you just don't even know where you are or where your brain was left on the counter, and you got in your car. And for me, often, most of my most personal experiences, they happen in the car. It's, can anybody else relate to that? Do they happen in the car for you? It's a space where you're not really being bothered a lot, well, once you drop the kids off, And so, what happens in the practical is, like you said, every moment is sacred, so it doesn't matter where it is or even what you're doing. Like, the Holy Spirit works in the most carnal places in all of us, not on some mountaintop that we are constantly trying to get to. And we really just need to let that go. We have to let that go. Anyway, the excerpt from the book, it says in 1 Corinthians 6:17, it says, "But the one who joins himself to the Lord is one spirit with him. Our union with him completes us, because there is a place in the heart of every human that God made only for himself. If we don't get this right, life will be out of rhythm and the pieces won't fit. Nothing else can fill this void, including other people, money, pleasure, or accomplishments, and certainly not religion. We weren't created to connect with a system, but with a person." And so we also need these places of really deep connection and vulnerability with each other. And when we're talking about, you need just as much of the input rhythms in order to be able to have the output, the capacity for the output that you need, right? Because we have to be able to give as much love as God requires of us to give, because we're being filled up with it that much. And that really only happens through these rhythms. So I kind of just want to bring you guys into the conversation. And you may have a question for me as we go along. I don't know if you want to do that now or...
Yeah, we can turn it to if pull everybody in if there is anything, and then I will. I would like to ask you a question.
Yeah. So just based on the questions that we gave you guys earlier, we're going to come around with a mic for you. And can anybody relate to anything that Vince said? What are your own thoughts? What are your own experiences? Maybe just could you go with us to a place where you're vulnerable enough to share, like maybe what's really bothering you right now? Or maybe there's a place where you're just like, I've been trying to do this and it's just not working. I just really would like for us to be able to share with each other from a really deep place and help each other. So.
Yeah, Colleen.
Oh, she has one. Okay.
Everybody at once.
So if you guys have anything, Colleen's going to come around with a mic, and I would just love to hear from you guys.
Mine's just more of a question. I've just struggled all the time with devotion. You know how you're saying, do your QT or whatever. Like, I just sit down and have my Bible, or I have a devotional, or I have a prayer list, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. A lot of times I fall asleep while I'm praying, not gonna lie. So I just always feel like I'm doing it wrong, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm trying to be too legalistic about it. I just don't know. I just need advice for how to get into that space and do what works for me.
I'm making him really uncomfortable today, guys. Charlotte, what do you love? What do you love? Like, what in your day just feeds you?
Music.
Okay.
Art. Gardening.
So are you any less with Jesus in the garden than you are at the table with your Bible?
No.
So go to the garden. He exists just as much there. Chances are it'll be a richer experience for you. And, you know, that's not to say that you can't be in the Word. There's definitely very practical ways of getting into the Word. But if the space that you're trying to enter is not working for you, then you need to do something different. I'm a gardener. I absolutely love that. That's one of my favorite places to be. And actually, usually on the swing in the backyard are some of my best times with Jesus. It's not over this idea that I have to be doing it a certain way. So go to the garden.
Yeah, that's really good. And you're right, Charlotte, about the legalism thing. I think that does creep in really, really easily to our psyche. So, for a while there, what worked for me was doing something called the SOAP method for Bible study, which is picking a scripture and having your journal, and you just write out like one verse that really sticks out to you from a chapter, and then your observation is O. It's S-O-A-P. Well, you know how to spell SOAP. O stands for observation, like anything that sticks out to you about it. And then A is application, which is just like, God, what does this have to do with my life? And then a prayer. And that really worked for me because it was like 20 minutes, maybe a half hour at the most. And it was great to be able to look back through it. But as much as that's true for me, and that was truly my sustenance for like probably 5 years, I haven't done it in like a year and a half. And that's just because if a particular spiritual practice is not forming us at all, to have hearts for Christ, then toss it, it's okay. Find one that does, and maybe it is just spending time in the garden, and as you're gardening, contemplate, what God is doing in your life, and all the connections that can be made, and turning that into a prayer. Legalism kills. This stuff is meant to give us life, and we must be purposeful about it, for sure. And I definitely think we have to be intentional, but we can't let it turn into legalism, because it'll serve the opposite purpose, But also, I do want to mention really quick, these are a few of my favorite apps that I use on my phone, and that are prayer focused. But like the Pray As You Go Bible in 1 Year, in particular, have really good biblical devotions in them. So if you like music and you're not getting much out of reading it, then put it on, because there's music in the background. They all have nice English voices, like voices from the UK that sound so much more intelligent. But it's just kind of appealing to me personally, a lot of these apps. But so that's just another way of doing it. The sky is really the limit when it comes to how we learn to do some of that stuff. So, yeah. Any follow-up questions with that? Yeah, if Charlotte, do you have any?
Why not? I also have 2 children, and it's...
I'm passing the mic.
You have kids.
Because he doesn't have 3.
And it's just the balance. I mean, these are here. It's the balance of doing it for myself and doing it and teaching them. And I think have been feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing, so how am I teaching them well? We're just trying. So any If that's the kind of stuff that would help with them too, or if you have other suggestions, I will take them.
I mentioned this last month specifically when we talked about how we even came up with this as a conversation. And I have been where you are for so many years. And it wasn't until I actually got a hold of, I had read the book, Rhythms of Renewal, and I got a hold of the planner and journal. And it's called 90 Days to Peace and Purpose because you're starting to practice some habits in there. I'm going to show it to you afterwards, but I had never found something that would actually work for me in a way that I could keep it going, right? And it wasn't a legalistic keep it going. It was like, okay, it's giving me a whole bunch of options. I don't even have to worry about writing them down. I just have to check them off. But each one is in specifically each one of the rhythms. So you have rest and restore and then connect and create. Are you at any point of your day at least filling one thing inside those spaces? And it was so practical and so helpful, you know, like a restore, like Vince doing pour over coffee in the morning, that's a restore rhythm for him. He might not articulate it that way. Maybe most of us wouldn't articulate it that way, but that's what we need to think about, the practicality of what it means to actually, is this restoring my soul? Okay, great, you know, that's a place to start. And maybe you do it one day at 9 a.m. and maybe the next day it happens at 2 p.m. The time doesn't really matter, you know? What matters is, are you giving yourself space to feed your soul? And in those practical moments, the Holy Spirit comes into those. So very practically, we're going to talk a little bit about how to build a framework around this to give you a place to start as well and some tools. But you need some accountability there, some way to start for sure. And we are going to go through that.
Anybody else have anything, question or experience or anything along those lines? Yeah, CJ.
Well, having bigger transitions in my life, I recently got divorced last October, and that's a big change in your life, your rhythms, as you say. And so you get used to having to be on your own. You have to be alone. After, like, I was married for 24 years, so that was a big one. And I find that I have to go through some kind of journey to come back to where I was, because it hits you. You feel guilt, you feel remorse. It's like you've lost something. You've lost a death. It's like a death in your family. People don't realize how much you can grieve over a loss like that. And I guess I try to fill my day. Excuse me if I get a little emotional. I fill my day by just having a routine. First thing I open my eyes, I pray. I listen to a Christian radio station. I listen to the one from Boyertown, and that kind of soothes me to get me started. And I go through my routine like you do with the coffee, making breakfast, getting ready for the day. And then I have my job, my part-time job at work from 12:30 to 5. So I just try to fill my day, so I don't have to remorse about the emptiness I may feel. And I don't consider it basically running away, but I'm trying to run back to and find myself again, because I lost a lot of myself. And I pray about it. But I don't feel sorry, and I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me or feel pity, because that's when you fall into other things that you don't want to. Because then the guilt will come back. It will just override you. It will just beat you down more. And that's why I try to stay away from that. Because feeling sorry for yourself is wasted energy. It just destroys your rhythm, as you say. It'll wreck you. You have to try to keep positive and move forward. You know, and if it's God's plan for you to meet someone else, fine. If it's not, you just accept it and move on. But you do the best you can. You make the best of it you can. And I have an app. It's a Bible app. And I go to that every morning. And it helps. You know, but I do want to get reading more into the Word. I've gotten away from it a bit. But I'm trying to find a time and space I can do that and be quiet with God.
Sure.
Because the best time is when you are quiet, when you are calm inside, and you are quiet with God.
Yeah.
And you're making time for yourself with that. And it doesn't matter, like you said, with your gardening, with whatever that you're doing, as long as you're making a time where you're doing something, and then you start thinking about God and what His purpose is for you, and that's what counts. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing.
Yeah, that's so good, CJ. Thanks for being that transparent with all of that.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. I think that's helpful, actually, really helpful, that idea that it's not so much what you're doing, it's who you're doing it with, you know, really, really matters in healthy life rhythms. It's the fact that whatever I'm doing it as unto the Lord, or I'm doing it for or with the Lord, you know. That it's the intention of our heart, not the actual function.
Right.
And the fact that, you know, you in your home, which probably feels a lot more empty, is, you know, actually filled with the presence of the Lord. You know, like, there is no place that we can go to escape His presence, the psalmist tells us, you know. So He's there. And you know this, and I think we all know this, but I'm reminding myself of this because it's stuff that I'm dealing with in my own life right now too, that those yearnings that I talked about, that emptiness, that's actually an invitation. You know, it's not something to just kind of pray against and wish was not a part of our life. It's actually an invitation from the Holy Spirit to come deeper with Him, you know. And that's hard because it feels painful. But it's actually there as an invitation, you know. So, I mean, every time you're feeling that, which I know has got to be severe at times, but to be able to see that as an invitation, you know, is probably really important.
And the other thing I find is, if you try to always run away from something, you'll never run to something. You'll never grow.
Right.
You can't keep running away from your past. It's like Jesus said, your past, throw it away. And follow me.
Right.
And that's what He meant. You got to remove that, all that poison, all that toxin, all that's gone before isn't going to do you any good.
Right.
It's what's going ahead that does you any good.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, CJ.
You're welcome.
Could we just hear from each other too? Do you guys have anything, this can be very like easy, so do you have anything that you already know in your day really works well for you? And just share that with us. Like, this can be quick, you know, like, can just be like, yeah, I really like to do this, and I do it regularly, or I do it on a daily basis, or during the week, or at least once a month, or something like that.
Excuse me. I usually, like, I try and start out, if not first thing in the morning, while I'm eating breakfast, because part of my daily routine sometimes is I do swimming twice a week at Blythesdale. So those classes are early, so sometimes I do that first. You know, I get up, the first place I go is go there, then come home and eat breakfast. Well, the days that I'm not swimming, usually while I'm eating breakfast or so, even before I read the newspaper, I have usually used our daily bread, and Mornings with Jesus. There's devotionals, in both. So I try and start my day, with those.
Great, thanks, Bob.
I wanted to give another plug for the Pray As You Go app up there. What I do with that one is pretty much every morning while I'm getting a shower, I turn it on. They tend to be about like 10 to 12 minutes, and I just agree with Vince so much. Like it's just there's music there, and it's like a calming kind of voice, and it's just a good. You just think about Scripture, and so I would recommend that one.
I've used a journal called Give Me Jesus Journal from Well Watered Women, and that's been really helpful for me. It gives you kind of like a pathway to follow. You pick your scripture, and it gives you space for prayer, and then it has 2 questions at the end, like how does this change the way I live, and I think the other question is how does this change what I believe about God? I can't remember, but there's 2 really good questions at the end that are, I saw that, Vince. I did. I saw it. Yeah. So that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, thanks, Jenner. Gretchen Saffels is the author of the Well Watered Woman stuff, I think, right? Yeah. Anyway, she's great. Whatever Jenner said, it's a fantastic. Yeah, go ahead, use that.
So thanks, guys, for sharing. I wanted to ask Sarah a question, if we have time. Yeah, well, I guess this is going to be a quick answer. I'm really sorry. Colleen, would we have that mic again? Back? Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. The question is, like, I have, in my own life, I was so focused for so many years on developing, even though I would have never used that phrase, but developing healthy rhythms, but it was all very personal to me, because I really felt like if I was right with God and enjoyed that it would naturally, pour out of me, and I would be the dad I needed to be, the husband, the pastor, the friend. I would be everything I needed to be. But that doesn't actually translate all the time. I'm going to talk about that more next week. But it also doesn't always translate to families. You know what I mean? Like, just because one person in a family has those rhythms doesn't mean everybody else does. So what are your thoughts about that? And have you guys tried to be intentional as a family in any way to developing healthy rhythms?
Yeah, so I think, Charlotte, you were touching on this earlier, and I knew we were getting here, so sorry. It absolutely doesn't mean that the whole family has a rhythm. Just because you do, or someone in the family does, it doesn't mean that the whole family has a rhythm together unless you cultivate that and actually talk about it as a family. And I would also say that Jeff has always been so much better at this than me. He's always been so much better at taking the time he needs, or just literally disappearing. And there were so many times, and I know a lot of you can probably relate to this, that I really resented that, because I thought, well, here I am, I'm stuck with the kids, Carrie's looking at me. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that you had a weekend away. I really appreciate you just went and did a bunch of stuff with the guys.
Chris is nodding her head back there also.
Like, we want to be real about this, right? Like, that's a space in which you don't have healthy rhythms as a family. One person in the family identifies the fact that they need a healthy rhythm and they go get it. And it leaves everybody else kind of like, okay, well, good for you, thanks. And instead of drawing closer together, we're drawing further apart, aren't we? It's absolutely happening. And I became a martyr to that for a really long time. Again, man, I can't believe I just said that. But I would resent it the more I became a martyr to it. And that's what kept happening over and over and over again. And it wasn't that Jeff was doing that to me personally. It didn't affect him the way that it did me. He was just taking his time. I just always was like, well, what about me? Until I decided that I was going to change that narrative, and that I wasn't going to be a martyr about it. I was going to take my own time. And I was just going to say, guess what? I need to go away for a weekend. So how are you going to work out the kid care for me? And that creates a space in which you have a lot more really honest conversations. It cannot be about one person. And that's kind of how it should work, I think, between spouses. You need to give each other the same amount of time and space. If you don't, one partner is always going to resent it, and you already know that because you do. And for the kids, that's a whole other thing. You have to bring the kids into that with you, and it starts with a conversation with them. You kind of will know what they love. You kind of will know what they're into. They don't have the same responsibilities as you, so they'll kind of go off and do their own thing. I know, like, our Micah, he loves Legos. He's totally into that. He will take his audiobook into his room and for hours just sit there and build Legos, And we have to understand that these things that they can already identify in themselves are part of their rhythms, And then as a family, you kind of create other ones. You play games together. You hang out together. You do something that everybody enjoys. And I'm the type of person that can't be at home and actually relax with my kids, because the only thing on the back of my mind is that to-do list and the laundry and everything else. And I don't be when I'm at home. And I don't know about anybody else, but I actually had to come to a point where I decided I can't be at home with the kids and actually be with them, because I'm not. So that looks like we need to go for a bike ride, or we need to go for ice cream, or, we just need to get out of the house, because I can't shut off my brain, I don't know if anybody relates to that too, but I see a lot of heads nodding, so I'm guessing that you do. So yeah, one person having healthy rhythms does not cultivate rhythms for the whole family, and you really have to start with a conversation.
I was just going to ask that.
Well, I'm glad to hear Lene was much better about it than me.
Well, so really step one, even before the conversation, step one is deciding to do it.
Yeah.
And to sit, no matter, which I would imagine that a lot of moms of young children really struggle with feeling too guilty about doing that. So really it's giving yourself permission to, that's a word that we keep talking about, giving yourself permission to actually say, no, I've got to do this. For my own sake, for the sake of the family, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
And then having that conversation in which there's not really a choice, right? I mean, the spouse just has to accept. I mean, really, I think that's the case. I mean, I would just say, like, for moms of young children, not that you need me to say this, but don't give a choice, It's just don't give a choice. It's like, this is what I'm doing because this is what I have to do, and making it work that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And then each time it's a little bit easier to let go of that initial guilt that you feel when you actually leave.
Right.
And it does, it gets a lot easier. But eventually, as spouses, we have to love each other enough to give each other that kind of space.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. And if one partner isn't talking about it or saying, this is what I need, and you're not actually verbalizing that, we can't expect our partner to read our thoughts. Or to just assume, something about what we're thinking. I tried that. It doesn't work.
Right.
Too many times.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, as a husband, if you give wives, if you give us permission to make us a priority, we will do it. We will make ourselves a priority as much as we know, we will fall into ruts in which our agenda and what we think needs to happen becomes priority, and it's not good. It's not healthy, actually. So that kind of honest conversation is crucial, and it may be a really good starting place, for developing healthy rhythms. That's good. I really, really wish we had more time because I feel like we're just still getting started. But you wanted to share some things about where do we go from here?
Yeah, I just want to, kind of give you guys a framework. Like, the one thing we don't want to do is talk about how important this is for you, and you guys know that. Like, you feel it at some level. If you are out of rhythm and you took some time to answer all the questions that we sent you ahead of time or that have been up on the screen, that there is something that may be out of balance in your life. And so we just want to sort of give you a framework for how does this actually flesh out practically. You have to have an accountability. I would suggest bringing a friend into it, and also using things like specific journals. The Rhythms for Life Planner and Journal, again, it's my favorite because I've not seen anything more practical on the market than that. You need to set realistic goals. And honestly, I would, if you took a picture of the screen before, we'll send this out this week to you guys. But setting realistic goals means that you're not overshooting what you're capable of. And if you are aiming to change something, just aim to change one thing, maybe two things. But don't do more than that, because then you'll just find you're finding yourself in a place of failure again. Don't worry if you miss a day. Vince and I can't say this enough, honestly. We're not perfectionistic about it. It has to just, if you miss a day or two or three, and then you just kind of come back to that space. Don't be perfectionistic. Aim to keep trying for at least 90 days, because that's how you form a new habit. It's not going to change if you don't really give it a good go for 90 days. And I would suggest start forming your rhythms around what best suits you. So the things that give you life, the things that you want more of, the things that automatically feel natural to you. Like, there's a number of different rhythms. I always end up most in the connect space. That's so easy for me. It comes naturally. But many other people may end up way more in other spaces, like, rest or creating, is much more of a big deal. So we'll send you guys these things with links to the things that we, like, and, if you want one, also just let us know. We'd be happy to, to get you started on that journey.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. All right, thanks to everybody. And, those who are watching online as well, even if you didn't sign up for this class, you can also email us and everybody else if you don't have time to talk to us today. Or as you start to develop your own healthy rhythms, we're not, you can tell, we're going to be very transparent about our own struggles and failings in that area. We're not experts at all. But we're being intentional about it. And if you would like to bounce ideas off of us, feel free, to write us. Sarah at ReadingCityChurch.com, Vince at ReadingCityChurch.com. And we'd love to have those conversations with you. All right, let's do our transitions here. I'm going to take this mic if that's all right. Thanks. Thanks, Sarah. So as the worship team comes up, and those of you who are coming in to rejoin us, glad you're back and hope you all had a good class as well. And we want to remind everyone to please get on our website, again, ReadingCityChurch.com, and on our app, and there is a survey there. And if you could just fill out the survey to let us know if any of these classes that you're attending are actually speaking to you, any ways that you think they could be improved or anything along those lines, is really, really helpful to us, because we're still just getting started with all these rhythms. So, yeah, let's close with a song of worship together.
Filled with kindness and compassion for the one for whom you loved and gave your Son for humanity. Increase my love.
Would you stand and sing with us? We'll repeat that first verse.
And we be filled with kindness. Father. And help me to love with open arms like you do. That erases all the lines and sees the truth. Oh, that when they look in my eyes, they will see you. And even in just a smile, they will feel the Father's love.
Amen. Church, you are dismissed. Have a great week.